Welcome to the Radical Responsibility Revolution podcast. This is where we are transforming lives, inspiring you to reclaim your health, your wealth, and the power of your mind. Here we share actionable insights, inviting you to turn inwards and design your life of purpose and abundance. Welcome back to another episode of Radical Responsibility Revolution. And I'm so excited about today's conversation because women everywhere, as you all know, are waking up to the realization that the hustle, the push, the constant striving isn't the only way to create success. And my guest today is Hannah McKitrick, founder of Dolce Vita Experiences, which y'all, I can't wait for you to learn about this, where she leads transformational retreats in places like Italy and Greece. Yum. That combines soulful travel, feminine leadership, intuitive businesses, and deep personal expansion. Her work centers around helping women entrepreneurs step out of the pressure, reconnect with their intuition, and learn how to create success from alignment, magnetism, and what she calls energy hygiene, which is my new favorite word, instead of burnout and force, which y'all are doing. What I love about Hannah's work is that even though many women don't discover this way of living until midlife, ladies, we know that she has embodied this wisdom at this beautiful age of youngness, not because she avoided the hustle, but because she lived it. She saw where it didn't work and found a different path. And today we're talking about this intuitive leadership, feminine wisdom, nervous system healing, receiving instead of pushing, and what happens when women finally realize we were never meant to live by the masculine playbook. So, Hannah, I'm so excited about this. I want to start with your story. What happened to allow you to realize that there is a different path, really at such a young age?
Yeah, absolutely, Debbie. So I definitely internalized that deep pressure to succeed and achieve and do well from a very young age, like beginning in grade school. And in school, there was a very linear system. You study this information, you get an A on the test, you get into a good college, da 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 da. And so I did that, and I was pretty stressed during high school, but I did well and I followed the path and the system. And then I was in college and I was like, okay, next step now is to get a good job outside of college. And what I was really passionate about in college was food. I loved food. Part-time job in college was a baker at our student-run coffee shop. And I loved it so much. I forgot that I was even getting paid. My first job out of college was at a corporate catering company on their sales team. And so for me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best job ever. It has to do with food. This is awesome. And I got in this job and it was just so 9 to 5. I commuted an hour and a half in, commuted an hour and a half home. And after about a year there, I was, what's next? Is this it? I was very stimulated and I reached as high as I was going to reach in that job. And I kept yearning for something more, for something that would make me actually feel something. What I really wanted at the time was to explore my passion further, which was the culinary school. And so I just started researching culinary schools in Europe because I had such an itch to just do something big that would ignite something in me. And so I found this culinary school in Italy, and I ended up, after 2 years, quitting that job and going to culinary school in Italy. And this was that pattern disruption because it was really the first time in my life that I was like, I'm not positive if this is going to further my career in any way, shape, or form, but I just want to be here now. Like, even if this doesn't go on my resume, I just want to be experiencing this day in and day out. And it was the first time that I actually allowed myself to not take so many notes and just take in the experience. And some of my classmates were like furiously writing down the recipes and all this. And I just was like, I'm done with that. Like, I just want to absorb everything here. And what I experienced there was a euphoria that I didn't know was possible. And it set the bar for how good life can be. And it just taught me so much about that slower pace. I saw how you could have the best of both worlds. And so when I got back from Italy, okay, how do I bring this into my everyday life? And I kept trying to. I got another corporate job, and that was had to do with Italy and food and event planning. And it seemed like a dream job, but it just sucked me dry. And so finally, I ended up getting this download around cooking, retreats, Italy. I was very into self-growth, personal development, being the best version of you that you can be. And so this desire and vision for a business just got placed on my heart. And I just kept taking one step in front of the other to kind of teach myself and study with people to learn how to create this. So studied transformational coaching, I studied retreats, I went through my own healing journey and ended up creating a business around this passion. And what I found very quickly was that I could not follow a linear path. And anytime I tried to follow that masculine structure of like email campaigns, grow your list, do this, do that, zero. And every time I followed my intuition, did what felt fun, did what felt exciting, did what really didn't feel like work, is when the success would happen. And that's when I was like, okay, more people need to know this and learn this. And the retreats were such a fun pathway to give people that felt experience of what it's like to live in that ease and thus receive even more.
It's so fascinating. Even though it is sucking your soul, there's a courage involved in making a different decision. So how do you explain that courageous move? What is the impetus that allows you to make that decision to say, my soul is not singing, let me try something else?
Exactly. It's a choice, and everybody has a choice. And I remember this distinctly when I was 23, and people found out that I was going to culinary school in Italy. And the number one response I got was, I'm so jealous.
Yes.
And I would look at them and say, you can do this too. I'm not special,
Right.
but it's not all frilly and easy. I'm quitting my job, giving up my security, giving up my housing, leaving my friends and family for 3 months, going into a new environment where I don't know anyone, investing a lot of money, and that's my choice. And you can make that choice too. And so it is, and when I would challenge people with that, they would start to realize it's easy to be like, "Oh, I'm so jealous," and think like, "Oh, you're living the life." But then it's like, well, think of actually what the trade-off is here. And so with any decision, you have to tune into your own intuition and decide, is the trade-off safety and familiarity, is the trade-off of this safe, familiar thing worth what I feel I can obtain from taking this courageous leap? And I'd say more often than not, the leap is always worth it. Had to learn from experience. I just kept taking the leap. And at first, it really was a shock to my nervous system. And then it stopped being one. And it just got to be really fun. I feel like when people decide to go on a retreat, or even invest in a program, it is that point of, are they going to trade in their comfort for something new that holds a lot of promise on the other side of more internal peace, more connection, more adventure, more fulfillment, and all of that that is unknown. It's a risk. So it's just kind of weighing what's true for you.
It's taken generations to build this momentum for women to make decisions that are different than what we were trained to do. I wonder what your opinion is about your generation feeling like they can make these choices not easier because obviously the people you talk to said I'm jealous, and I've heard that story a lot of times by women your age when they make these decisions, but the idea that there is that possibility for us, do you think that it's becoming more possible for women that we can make different choices as opposed to this linear one that we were given this playbook?
Oh, absolutely. I think my generation has a certain level of conditioning, but my parents' generation was like, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a nurse, you're a teacher, period. And those were those were kind of the options. And I'll say I feel like the generation below me really has more
Hmm.
a wide spread of exposure to those opportunities, especially with social media. I feel like my generation was kind of teetering on it. This wasn't common. Friends were like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" Most of my friends are in mainstream jobs because that is what we were conditioned into. I will say I was super grateful because my parents were very, very supportive and encouraged me to follow my passion versus I think if I was in a stricter household, it would have been quite hard. I do feel privileged in that way because they supported me and it's just emotionally supported me.
I love what you're now doing for other women by being that support system, creating that container in these
Hmm.
retreats, by
Hmm.
allowing them to see what is possible. Because I think, really, at the end of the day, until somebody gives us a glimpse of what's possible, many times we don't believe it because we do have programming from our families that said, do this, do that, or the society. And so, how do you feel now, though, giving that space, that really sacred space, that container for women to embody this for themselves? As I'm asking you that question, I'm getting goosebumps. I can feel that that's a really strong energy that you open up to allow that support. How do you feel that in your own soul?
I feel utterly giddy. I think it's the coolest thing ever. And my retreats specifically are in locations that make your jaw drop. I want people to feel like they're standing on the edge of the world and it's just them. And so, one of my favorite places to bring people in Italy, it's on the very, very bottom of Italy in southern Italy. And it's just this 180-degree view of the Ionian Sea. You can see the sunrise, the sunset, and it's just stunning. And I love bringing people there and just watching them open, like completely. And it's not even the view, it's the hospitality. Like they're wined and dined to the nines, and they're just like, whoa. And it's such a that sounds like a little thing of getting treated well, having a nice view, getting fed, but it's such a microcosm of them just opening to the possibility of more lavish, of more enjoyment, of more pleasure.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know why this is coming up for me in this particular moment as you're explaining this scene. We can create, once we have it downloaded in our DNA, I believe, we can recreate it in our minds and then we can have micro versions of it when we are in our real life until we create whatever it is we're creating. It's funny, Cindy Crawford just did an Instagram about her daily routine. And what she does, she gets up, she meditates, she does a lot of things, but she basically takes 2.5 hours of her day in the morning to set her day. And some of the feedback was, and I think you'll appreciate this, oh, it must be nice, right? It must be nice to have that in your life. And I thought, well, everyone can have that. I know you probably have time and space that you've created in your life, not just on the field trips, because really those
Mm-mm.
are beautiful and magical. But the object of the exercise is to bring that into daily experience so that I'm expressing that joy on a regular basis. I don't have to go to it to get it. I understand, I see the profound nature of it, and then I'm incorporating it. So,
Mhm.
what would you say to somebody that thinks, oh, well, that must be nice. Somebody could take a retreat and do whatever for a few days or experience life in this juicy, delicious way? Because that's what you're describing, not just for the moment, but take that and expand it in your whole life because that's what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I actually recommend to people creating something really simple called a joy list. And this is
Mhm.
just writing down a list of things in your everyday life that bring you joy. This could be a cappuccino at a coffee shop after a walk. It could be a morning run outside. It could be drinking your morning coffee with candles and meditating for 5 minutes. It could be going out to lunch with a friend and toasting Prosecco for on a random Tuesday. Different things like this that make you feel happy so that you can intentionally pull from this list
Yeah.
to continue that elevation of your energy and frequency to be more in that joy. And radiate more of that instead of like, oh, that must be nice. It's like, no, you can go do something like this right now and it'll be different for everyone. Like I just listed, th those are some of mine. Like that makes me
Yep.
really happy. All those,
Yep.
like, booking a flight, upgrading, all those things, like it makes me happy. And it's those little things that add up. Like getting a cappuccino is not that big a deal, but if you bring intentionality into that and do it a couple times a week because it makes you feel good, that's great. That's very healthy, I think.
It's interesting because it could be the sacredness of having a cappuccino infrequently, or it could be the dredge of standing in a Starbucks line every single day because you feel like that's your habit, you need it. It's just really the intentionality, as you said. And that
Hmm.
brings me to this idea of what you're creating in this environment and what you're teaching and what you've learned is the magnetism of creation as
Hmm.
opposed to the force, because
Hmm.
that's what the linear masculine playbook. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong, and I say this all the time, nothing wrong with masculine or feminine because we
Mm-mm.
need both. However, we've lost all of that feminine energy, which is the magnetism, which is that frequency. So how do you share with people to look at this from that perspective of your intentionality, and how does that build that magnetism and create that frequency in a way? I just want to hear it in a different way because I love to hear
Yeah,
other people's
absolutely.
voices.
Absolutely. So I'll preface what I'm about to say with that. We're speaking energy right now, and energy sometimes doesn't have words. So this is how I'm going to
Mhm.
describe it, and I'd encourage everyone to feel it instead of try to metabolize it through their mind. But here's my shot at words. So I
Yeah.
believe that our desires that come through us, that light us up, that feel exciting, that fuel us, is our intuition speaking through us, saying, go this way. And I think so many women shut down their desires. Like, no, I can't run retreats. I have to be a doctor. No, I can't get a cappuccino. I have to pick up the kids every single day, and so on and so on. But really, that desire is calling you to your next level of ease, of alignment, of being on the path that's meant for you. And being on this path is, it just feels like things are in flow. You experience more synchronicities, more serendipities. You feel like the universe is handing you more things on a silver platter. Like you just are in sync with your highest self and with, the path that you came here to do. And so, in terms of that magnetism, I always encourage people to really get clear on what they actually want. And then once they have that vision, then we get clear on the most fun pathway they can think of to achieve that vision. So, running a business, there's 9,000 ways to run a business. What's the way that lights you up the most? And I do these vision joy strategy sessions with people to actually paint this picture with structure and steps to create this dream life vision through steps and action items that are fueled by their own intuition, or said another way, fueled by their joy of what lights them up and what feels the most exciting. And then I could tell people that this is going to create magnetism, but what really shifts it is from them taking those little steps and it clicking once they receive the results. And it's like, oh, so this actually, this actually can happen just by X, Y, Z. And it's an ever evolving process and fine tuning. Like it's not like, it's a combination of your excitement, but then also feedback from the universe of what's happening, of what's flowing. So it's that dance and that co-creation of like, I'm gonna take one step in this direction and then see how the universe meets me, and then tune back in and check in, okay, where am I being guided next with all of this while holding your greater vision, knowing that your intentionality is helping to um, really magnetize the results that you want towards you.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things there I love so much. First of all, is that the universe doesn't speak through words, it speaks through energy and frequency and all of that emotional download. So it is so beautiful that you prefaced it by saying that. And the other thing that I love so much about that was that the corporate or the masculine playbook is about goal setting, right? Which I've thrown goal setting goals. Oh, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies to even use that word. But the idea that we set a vision or we create a vision, we listen to a vision and then move towards it. But then the intentionality and the action, because there has to be action. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to sit around and manifest an ohm, right? I'm like, okay, you do have to do some movement. We're in this 3D world, but that you take action, sacred action, and then listen, right? That was so poignant the way you said that, because we do this thing where we're just on a railroad train going towards something and thinking that we know, and then we stop listening.
Hmm.
And when we stop listening to that intuition, to that beautiful guidance, that's when it feels, for me, sometimes icky, because I'm like,
Hmm.
I think I'm going on the right direction. And I got an intuitive hit, but I wasn't listening. So I
Right.
kept going in a trajectory that wasn't helpful. So how do you share with women in a shorter environment at a retreat about what does this look like? Do you do it through processes? Do you do it through movement? Do you incorporate the body? Tell us some of the tools that you have learned through your experience to incorporate into this retreat.
Yeah, so the retreat is such a whole experience and it's 7 days and people are always like, what's your favorite part of the retreat? What's the pivotal point in the retreat? And I'm like, it's such a full circle. And so one of the main outlets that I deliver this teaching is through group coaching circles. So on the retreat, we'll have a couple group coaching circles, and this is where I'll deliver a message that's coming through and give people a chance to journal on some questions that come through in order to integrate the application into their life. And the things that come through for them are like, whoa, like just during that session alone, and then they get to share it with the group, and then the person next to them is like, oh my God, same, and what da 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 da.
Mm.
So those sessions themselves are very powerful for people to kind of put words into the process. Like I said, it's a felt thing that we're talking about, but the circles in the journaling does help them pull through words of the process and also see where they might be stuck and help shed some clarity on that through my coaching and guidance and space holding. So the coaching circles are one, and then every moment on the retreat is so intentionally designed. So, one of the things we do in Italy are cooking classes. And
Mm.
this is to get out of your head and into your body and into pleasure and into the present moment. The coaching circles are a bit deeper, there's a bit more soul searching. And then the cooking classes are like, let's make yummy food. And the first half is like, you just sit back and watch us demo dish after dish after dish and taste all of them. And so it's fun, it's playful. And that does help people to integrate this lighthearted energy because the self-growth process is not meant to be so heavy. And so definitely a big part of the retreat is helping to rewire people's experience into that more joyful approach just to life. And the cooking is a really good sneaky metaphor for
Mm.
that. And we also do cultural excursions. We go to wineries, farm to table restaurants, and that's the lavish luxury, connecting back to the food, to nature, to community connection, just talking on the buses and creating that friendship in the process. And so it really is a whole circle type of moment for the different modalities that come together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it because the idea of play and joy and getting out of your head, those are all things we should be doing. I hate to shit on people, but we can be doing to support ourselves every single day. So just the idea that it can be modeled in such a beautiful way that somebody can take it home. I love retreats so much. And frankly, there's so many retreats that I've been to that are just scheduled out. Like, where's the fun?
No, yeah. I go to some conferences that are like the 9 to 5 with like a 7 p.m. evening session. I'm like, what? I don't want to be listening to you guys all day. Like, come on. Like let's chat.
In
Let's
a
have fun.
ballroom in a hotel, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite words that you used that I love so much is energy hygiene. Boundaries of our energy is so important. What does energy hygiene to mean to you? How do we become better at it? And what is it? How does it even serve us?
Yeah, so I feel like this is something that is so specific to each person. It'll be different for every single person. I'll give you some examples for me of what I do, and then maybe people can start to ideate on, oh, what would my be? So I love balance in my life. I eat really healthy, and I also don't. And I like my routine, but I also love to travel. And
Yeah.
I always have homemade cookies in my freezer. I love to toast special occasions with Prosecco and all of that stuff. And so when I travel, I like when I get home, for instance, from a long flight, immediately I like to unpack and sage my space. And then I like to take a hot shower with a lavender salt scrub, put on a face mask, and just cleanse myself on a physical level. The next day after a travel, I like to really do a lot of self-care, like go for walks outside, not have too much on the calendar, and give myself that space to integrate. I also think that in terms of energy hygiene, it's really important to pay attention to what environments you're in that feel good and what
Hmm.
environments you're in that feel bad. And this could be people, this could be habits, this could be anything you're doing in your life, just taking pull of, okay, what is giving me life and what do I feel like I need to decompress from or come down from, or what's sucking my energy, and being intentional with doing those things that fill you up. And if there's something that's sucking your energy, then asking yourself, is this something that I need to continue to do? And if I do need to continue to do it, like getting on an airplane, then it's like, okay, what habits can support that to bring me back to baseline? I also think that me every morning. I also have a 2.5 hour morning routine. I do my own
Beautiful.
personal clearing practices in the morning, and then I make my coffee and meditate with candles and journal a little bit and just make sure that there's nothing clogging
Hmm.
the field, getting anything out that needs to be processed. I feel pretty good, and if something needs to come up and out, it'll usually present as quote unquote anxiety or something like that. And it's like, oh, what's this? Why am I feeling so heavy around this certain thing? And then I'll sit with that, feel the emotion, and then the intuitive wisdom will come of if there's anything I need to do or say in order to clear that. And then movement. I always do a ton of movement in the morning. And then the last thing I'll say in terms of this kind of hygiene, I'm kind of thinking it of just, yeah, energy hygiene, but also just like um I don't even know how to describe it, but really the thoughts that you're allowing yourself to
Right.
think. And this is
Hmm.
just so important because if you're shaming yourself all day long, that is going to create this heaviness around you, versus if you're lifting yourself up all day long, that creates this lightness and levity in your step. And so it's really getting just noticing how you're speaking to yourself, and if that's something that's important to you to shift, make an effort speaking nicer things to yourself.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting because as you're speaking so matter of factly and calmly, which I know there's women that will listen to this and go, she doesn't understand. Just like the women that said, must be nice for Cindy Crawford, because we have built this armor for ourselves. And I love that women wear the busyness badge now because I'm too busy.
Mhm.
But most people aren't willing to do them because they have an excuse. I've got the kids, I've got the husband, I've got the job, I've got the friends, all of these things. So, what do you say to women that gets to that point?
Yeah, well, I think that if if someone is just going on autopilot and their soul is calling them to the next level, and maybe it starts in whispers and nudges like, hey,
Hmm.
go check out this seminar, or hey, go try this retreat, and maybe they're, no, I'm not going to do that, then usually, unfortunately, a catastrophic life event happens that makes them uncomfortable enough to warrant the desire for change. Because if someone's feeling good, why would they do a 2.5 hour morning routine? That doesn't make sense for them. For me, I used to be at war in my mind and in my body. And so a 2.5 hour routine is mandatory because I know the opposite of what's
Hmm.
possible when I'm not doing that, which is severe anxiety, severe physical pain, not being in control of my body, not being in control of my thoughts. And I don't like that. I like to feel grounded and peaceful and calm. And so this is what I do. And so these events, a lot of women, their marriage will or relationship will end, or they'll get laid off, or da 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 da. And all of these things that happen, I actually get really excited for people
Me too.
because it's it's so clear from my
Yeah.
perspective. They're being called to shift, and the universe is helping them out by making it really, really obvious, like how wonderful. And so then at this point is when they start usually seeking more support to create, to help someone connect them back to themselves of who they were before X so that they can come back to their intuition, back to their inner guidance. And um you know, changing habits, it does take some work and it takes some reintegration. So if they have the husband and the kids, and they will have to create a new routine, and that does take
Mhm.
practice. And the first step is really coming back into yourself and getting clear on what you desire and how you want to get there.
Yeah. I think that's really important for women to hear that as well, though. And you said a word that I'm not a big fan of is work. I think it's more of that intentionality and courage because when we change who we are, not our true self, but the habits that we've been practicing for such a long time, it takes tremendous courage to choose something else. And I love the idea that these retreats give somebody a glimpse of what that can be like. Because once again, I think it's so important that we haven't been shared and shown what it can be like. But when you described the peace and you said, I won't give these habits up because I know what's on the other side of that. And I think that that's the important part is that we've learned to put up with the anxiety and the stress and the, dysregulation to the point where that feels normal. And then when you feel that essence of peace and joy, it's so much harder to go back into the chaos because I
Hmm.
believe that women live in chaos and they don't even know that they're doing it. It's like
Yeah.
the frog getting boiled. So talk about intuition because the upcoming retreat that you have is intuitive leadership,
Hmm.
which I think is such a beautiful framework for our world today because women are becoming more in the C-suite arena of practicing intuition because I believe that that's where we need to lead from. But what is that? What does intuition mean for you? And then what does that look like in a leadership arena?
Yeah, so I believe that intuition is the guiding force within each and every one of us that connects us to something higher, the universe, your highest self, whatever that might be. And it's this internal guidance system that is nudging you left, right, center, backwards, forwards throughout your whole life. And it's always been there. It's always going to be there. And it takes intentionality and practice to listen, hear, and receive that. And so, what intuition does, from my perspective, is it allows people to collapse timelines in getting what they want more quickly and with more ease. And that I think is really cool. So it's like, say someone wants to have $1 million mansion on the water. And then it's like, okay, what's my next best step to get there? And they will receive guidance of how to get there. And their intuition will lead the way towards that desire because that desire was placed on their heart from their highest self. And I believe that intuition is becoming the new pathway forward. And what used to work is not going to work anymore in these business, corporate, entrepreneur settings. What's dying is kind of that, the traditional way of things that things have been done. And what's taking its place are more intuitive leaders who are leading from authenticity, from truth, from integrity, from a perspective of what's good for the collective. And there's this resonance and deep just honesty to that type of person that people can feel. And and trust and want to be led by. So I think it's very up and coming with leadership. And I think intuition in business, it has to play a role for massive success because it is a cheat code to how to get to where you want to go without all the angst and the stress. You receive the guidance so that you can know what thing to actually do that will move the needle. And the retreat is designed so that people can receive that clarity because intuition is received and you do need spaciousness in order to cultivate it. And really reach their next level of abilities with that and get that felt experience of how it can impact their work and life.
So I often talk about the difference between mindset and body. How do those work together, and how have we not been utilizing them effectively?
Simple question. No, so I definitely think they're very connected. I think that we obviously need the mind, and there are some old programs likely running the show in a lot of people's minds that can get a little confusing if you're not highly attuned to your emotion. So, for instance, fear versus intuition. It's like an age-old debate. Is it my fear or is it my intuition? That can get a
Yeah,
little heady. And
yeah,
whenever you're going into analysis, an over analysis, it's usually not a good place to be
yeah,
versus the body can't lie. And
yeah.
so it depends on how trained you are with your mind and with your emotions.
Hmm.
Emotional intelligence is the gateway towards kind of that part of that intuition and the mind being able to interpret these downloads that you're receiving. And so from my personal experience with intuition, it's a dance. It's a dance between the two. And I do think I think it's wise to have it interconnected. And
Yeah.
some people are more like body felt sense, and some people, hear words and whatever. For me, it's a dance between the two. And um for like the body, I feel like I'll get a body sensation first, and then my mind starts to
Hmm.
interpret it. And so it's
Yeah.
it's kind of that dance.
Yeah. That's beautiful because it really is. It is a dance. And I love the idea that, I mean, I've been saying this forever. The body doesn't lie. The body doesn't lie. And so if we tune in, we're going to use all of our senses and we're going to use our knowingness, but yet this whole notion that the body can guide us is so beautiful. Who was it? What is her name? Can't think of her name right now. She does these little cards that I read all the time. Anyway, she did a whole thing on the body. Um, it, it escapes me. Anyways, another time. Anyways, I want to talk about your retreat because I want you to share your retreat with this beautiful audience, and all your details will be in the show notes. So paint us a picture of this beautiful retreat in Greece that's upcoming in May.
Oh, I would love to. Favorite thing in the world is to paint pictures of retreats. So, this retreat is the Intuitive Leadership Retreat, and I'm co-leading it with my partner, Jessica, of Intuition Mindset. And she's an intuition mindset psychic expert. So, she's very strong in the left brain and I'm very strong in the right brain with the experiential component. And so it's a fun balance. And it's on a Greek island called Samos, which is a tiny island in Greece and it's very untapped by tourists. Samos is a tiny Greek island and it's very green with very blue waters. And we're staying at this little boutique hotel with a view of the sea, and it's going to be a combination of what we've talked about, like slower mornings with homemade Greek yogurt and local honey and on your own breakfast so that people can have their morning routines. And then we meet for the coaching circles where we'll have a teaching on intuition and help people integrate that into their work and receive that clarity. And then we'll do stuff like three-course lunches on a seaside taverna with some guided conversation. And then some days we'll go to the spa or to a winery or shopping because you're in Greece, you got to go shopping. And little different cultural excursions just to get out of the head into what we're doing, into the connection. We'll go on a hike and have a picnic lunch and really the intention is for people to enter one version of themselves and leave having met their favorite version of themselves and being able to know how to incorporate that back into their everyday life, into their work, so that ultimately they can just have more ease and more magnetism and less doubt, less overthinking, less shrinking and diminishing what they already know to be true of how they should be creating what they need to create.
Yeah. I love that phrase, a different version of themselves. The version that we love. We, I would say that most people, especially women, haven't even met that woman yet. They
Yeah.
don't even know her. They haven't been curious enough to explore that. So just that intentionality of being able to explore who that is, because that is the essence of who we are. And there's so many masks that have been put on our roles to play in this world, to just have that open space to create that. So
Absolutely.
so it's 2026. I know, gosh, I can't believe we're almost in April of 2026. I've been saying this since January on my podcast, and I'm thinking, well, at some point it's going to be 2027. But 2026 to me is a very magical year. The year of the horse, it's the number one in numerology. I feel like there is just so much energy around it from spiritual, metaphysical, all of those perspectives. So for you, what do you feel 2026 is bringing forward? Have you had any kind of download since you're very intuitive?
Well, I feel people really permissioning a lot of the things that we've been talking about today, stepping into their power led through peace and ease and more of that intuitive led leadership versus the doubt, the overthinking, the doing things because you should be doing them. It's like none of the shoulds. I feel like the shoulds are getting wiped away this year, and people's desires are coming to fruition more momentum, more support, and definitely a lot of action too. I feel like it's go time for people. Like there's no sitting on the sidelines thinking about what to do. It's go time.
Hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, so what is your best wisdom that you can share with this audience of mostly women? Probably a great percentage of them are in midlife, but still, it's a message that's coming from your spirit to theirs about what they might take a step towards their own vision in 2026. What's the best wisdom that you could give them in this moment?
What's coming to me now is have fun and relax. How much fun can you let yourself have? How relaxed can you let yourself be? And let yourself be wildly surprised by the universe and expect it to. Because it's
Hmm.
not just a frivolous thing to do. The more fun you're having and the more relaxed you are, the more that your brain can optimally connect pathways, download the intuition, create that clarity for you. And it has to come from a state of relaxation. It's not going to come from you bullying yourself. And so allow yourself to play with the idea that having fun and being relaxed could be the optimal strategy for 2026.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I wake up every morning asking the universe to surprise me. You said this, and it's so true. Go out and expect that that's
Hmm.
going to happen, because
Hmm.
that's what will happen when you do
Yeah.
when you have that expectation. So, well, Hannah, this has been absolutely lovely. You are a joy,
Yeah.
and you have surprised me, your wisdom and your youth. I love seeing that you're not following that playbook like a lot of our generations have. So I love what you're doing, and I hope that I can ask you back because I think that there's more to explore. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Debbie.
Thanks.